Hey guys, Ed here. I want to talk to you today about an old product, which may be weird to talk about because it's not available anymore. So why talk about it? But first of all, leave a like on this video, please. Go ahead and do that. Um, yeah, just I had to get back into an old product, so let's talk about it today. We're talking about Ohmie. What is Ohmie? All right, so this is Ohmie. Now, like I said, it's an old product. We do not offer it anymore. There have been people seeking them. However, we don't even have the parts anymore. There's no more of these terminals. The company that made them and supplied them to us does not exist. We had relays custom made for us. That company no longer exists. So I do not have parts. I cannot make you one. I cannot tell you a cost. If you find one out in the wild on pages to buy, on classifieds, sure, go ahead. But through us, I can't tell you anymore. This was a warranty repair. That's why I have it here. However, so it didn't have issues again, I improved it for this particular customer. If you already have one and you needed warranty repair, what I had to do was take parts off of his old unit and use them to rebuild into the new unit. And this is an old unit, so we had two different versions. One looked like this, had an acrylic base and had angled arms. However, they broke a lot, so we made some revisions and we made it like this. Now, this has been discontinued for years. It's not available, but I want to let you know what it was, how it works, in case you're interested enough for us to come back out with it. So essentially what Ohmie is, it's a relay box. It uses relays with the speaker wire from the amplifier to your woofers run through so that you can remotely, with a little switch, push of a switch, change the wiring on a dual voice coil woofer from series to parallel. And if you didn't want a remote switch, there's a little switch on the unit that you can use. Has a P and an S for parallel and series. The default setting is series, so when it's powered off, the voice coils are in series. And there's two channels. This channel and that channel are independent. So you could have two different woofers, and then you can have this run to a 2-channel amp, to two different amps, to a mono amp where they're parallel together, or have it run through another Ohmie and be able to switch each voice coil, the voice coil on each woofer, and then the woofers together. It can get complex, but however, this was a concept that I had, and I built by hand versions of this since, the early 2000s. And I understand there was something called the Omega switch. I developed this before knowing about that, and that was just a multi-pole switch that someone put a different label on. They're readily available types of switches that they just changed the labeling. This I developed specifically with this concept in mind, and because it had to carry thousands of watts of power to the woofers, I also added a timer circuit where you would connect your remote turn on to the amplifier so that when you switched modes, it would turn off the amplifier, switch, then turn the amplifier back on as to protect the amplifier. Because we can tell the customer, turn off your amp when you switch it, but who's going to do that all the time? This ensured that it did it. Now, for this version, for this customer, I had to improve that timer circuit because I always found it to be a little finicky. I can never get it quite right. So I spent a long time rebuilding their unit here because I went through many iterations of the timer design to really dial it in. And with this one, I did. And I'll show you some of that and explain development, but I want to explain what it does and demonstrate it for you. So that's the general concept of Ohmie. Here's its construction. We have a PCB here with push terminals. The PCB has all the power, relay turn on, timer circuit for the remote turn on. However, the speakers, the signal line from your amplifier, this is input side, amplifier connects here, goes through 8-gauge excess power wire that jumps over to these, it's a 80 amp relay. These relays then go through more 8-gauge wire connected through ring terminals right to these they fit 4-gauge, super large push terminals that can carry more current than the relays, hundreds of amps of current. So the circuitry is just the control to turn on and off these relays. There's 2 relays for each side, and to control the timer circuit right there. So I went through different iterations. This, I used a thicker base because the older version of this had a thinner base, and what I found is it warped a little bit. So as far as construction, it was a little bit off. Tolerances didn't line up. This is more solid. Then we have a lens here. So I have LEDs to show the different modes: white for standard series, blue for parallel, and it'll change color depending on the mode. Then acrylic tops so that you can still see all the coolness inside through it, but still protects it and keeps it somewhat contained. And I don't like acrylic bases because if you screw them down too tight, it can crack. So that the base here is HDPE. Now, what I don't have screwed on right now is the actual wire hold downs. You'll see this. I'll put them on when I'm done the video before I ship to the customer. On this unit, you'll see input and output, and this just allows you to run the wire underneath and keep it clamped down and looking clean. So this unit will also get that before it ships out. So I think I am going to hook up a woofer and actually show you it working. Let's talk about development real quick. This was a development PCB, and I went through a lot of different versions of the timer to get where it is now. Here's one using the dual chip timer circuit. Now there's a lot of reasons why we discontinued this. One is because connecting these terminals and those jumpers is a pain in the butt and takes me forever. They have to be routed ever so carefully and in an exact bend configuration. I started using this copper paste, which is conductive, a superconductive paste, to dab it underneath each terminal to the ring terminal, and it's messy as all heck. So I have to be very careful and clean with that. Soldering the boards is one thing. The construction, placing the acrylic arms that hold the relays, because relays don't screw down to anything, so we made these arms to hold it. It would take me all day just to do one, so there's no profitability in it, and it left me without time to do anything else at work. So we discontinued those. We also developed this push button switch that says SPL, so you can have SPL mode. So the purpose was that if someone wanted to compete or have a loud mode with super low impedance in parallel voice coil configuration, but turn that off easily to go into series mode to run their amps cooler to drive around, drive home with, then this allowed them to do it with just the push of a switch. And it's the same type of switch and cable that we have for our RBX 4CH relay box. So in fact, the original concept of the RBXs is that that was a line of products, the relay box line, and the original model number of this was RBX Ohmie. So we're going to have multiple different relay boxes for different purposes. This is a relay box just meant for voice coil configurations. Okay, so let's demonstrate. Okay, what we have here is we have a woofer connected on one of the channel output. Now, as I said before, it's 2 channel, and both channels are independent. So if we had one connected on this side, it won't necessarily be connected to that unless you connect it through the wiring on the input. However, we have dual voice coils here connected to the output. We have on the input side, you would normally connect your amplifier there. However, we have the SMD IM SG Plus, and this shows us our impedance. It actually puts a small signal through the woofer and tells us the impedance. Resistance is DC static. You can use just a regular ohmmeter or multimeter to read this. However, this is a little bit more accurate for speakers, and we'll show the differences depending on frequency. But it's really cool to see here. So this will see what the amplifier sees. Now, when I turn it on, it'll power up in default mode, which is series. So we'll see the impedance of these coils in series. Then you'll see a green light turn on after a second. That will go to the remote turn on of an amplifier. That is the time delay. And every time we switch modes, you'll see that time delay with the green status LED. Default mode, green LED. We are in series mode. We can see 8.5. Now, we have the remote switch. If we want to go to SPL mode, there we can see the color change, very subtle glow there, and the impedance change. Now we're in parallel mode, so this is going to be a lower impedance. Most people, when this came out, well, not most, some didn't understand. They thought this would just change your ohm load to some magical number. All it does is change between series and parallel, so it depends on what your voice coils are. If they're dual 4, it's going to change them between 2 ohms for parallel and 8 ohms for series. So it really depends just on your woofer. It does not adjust it magically for your amp. It's usually a quadrupling. If they're dual 2 ohm coils, in parallel they'll be 1 ohm. In series it'll be 4, so it'll go between 1 and 4. This happens to be between 2 in parallel. When I go back to series mode, over 8. Now remember, that's an impedance, so it's not exact the rated nominal DC resistance. And we could see the timer there. I'm very proud of that because that took a while to get just right, and it works. All right, so here's the thing. Like, this was discontinued for a lot of reasons, but this has sparked the interest again in possibly redesigning it for a new generation. And you know, we went through multiple steps. This was even before that, and we found it was just way too complex with this type of construction, with all this acrylic. And you know, some people don't need this. You go switch your sub wiring on the sub box or at the amplifier if you really want it, or just set it up so you don't have to adjust it. That's fine. This was for certain type of person that wanted to change it on the fly. And you know, some people didn't want to run speaker wire through relays. However, like I said, we did a lot of testing and development, and that's exactly what this was. This was the base of the first test Ohmie, which I put on a woofer and would play. So talking about vibration, and people don't trust the contacts and stuff like that, I tested it extensively before ever making it a product. So we would do that, the same thing with a new version. And one of the big questions was, and a lot of people still want this, you guys have been demanding it, we want to do something to I guess supply that demand. One demand was a 3-channel version. Well, this, like I said, is 2 independent channels, so maybe a new version would address a lot of these concerns. Different types of terminals, something more readily available and universal. Different type of construction where I didn't have to hand run all those 0 gauge wires. I could go, you know, instead of 2-ounce copper on a circuit board for all the little traces, a flat board, no parts or anything, just the PCB in this size is generally like $5 or so. I could go up to 13-ounce copper and run speaker wire through the PCB itself. However, cost is always an issue. So in low quantities, that could be $300 per PCB. So there's some solutions I have to come up with. In product design, it's not can you make something, it's how to make it to best fit as a product, especially with the limitations of cost and parts and material availability. So I have to figure out all those puzzles to come out with. But we can tackle that, and possibly I got the timer circuit down. It's just really in the construction. Also, the other thing was the acrylic housing that can possibly break easy, especially when someone's leaning on it during assembly. And how do we get it to handle more power? I do want to design my own relay. That may not be possible, but that is another option. Also, for all the people that demanded a 3-channel version, I'll just make them single channel, and then you can link. These were also linkable from master to slave all through one switch. I would do that with single channel versions. So it would be one block unit that you just use for each woofer that you have. So it doesn't matter if you have 1, 2, 3, 7 woofers, whatever it is, just one Ohmie for each one. Yeah, that's a lot of information for a product that's not even available. However, I still love this, and it's just everyone that has been interested in it still shows their interest, and I wanted to do something to share my excitement for this with you that still might be excited. Go over to sparkedinnovations.com. We still do have a lot of good products over there. We have, like I mentioned, the RBX4CH, and we have the conductor. I have a video up now on the conductor. You can see how it works with an alternator. It also works with your amplifier to see your current draw on the amplifier. And please leave a comment. Let me know what you think about this and the possibility of us coming out with a newer, more enhanced, modernized version of the Ohmie. I'd love your feedback. Would you buy one? If we put one out in a year's time, you may say it's interesting, but would you actually buy it and use it? Let us know that. I'm being blunt with you all here, giving you some insider information, but why not for this, right? It's exciting, so we want you to be excited too. Let us know below in the comments, and please give us a like and a subscribe to see more like this. Go over to sparkedinnovations.com right now, check out our products, and we'll see you next time.